So, you have a model you've just made, or you've even purchased a model, and you don't really like the dynamic bones of the ones you've purchased. Well, not to worry. For the last 2 to 3 months, on and off, I've been working on a plugin that does this automatically for you. No more clicking on transforms and adding transforms to dynamic bones, switching values on so many dynamic bones and copying and pasting and just wasting an hour just getting dynamic bones on your model. This is probably going to be one of the easiest ways to add dynamic bones. And at first, this is a plugin I made solely for myself just to speed up my workload, but as I was developing it, so many others wanted it and said that they would, it would save them a lot of time in making avatars. So I've just been kind of refining it from what it was, and there's still a lot more work to do on it, and it is still very early access. But I feel it's finally at a stage where I can release it, and it'll actually be somewhat useful to a lot of people, not only just making models to sell, but also just personal models. Hopefully that was a good pitch. I think that's a pretty good pitch. All right, anyway, so I actually have a purchased model here. I got this quite a while ago. You can see it's an old one because it's got this missing component here, and that's actually the old VRC descriptor component, as this is an old avatar. So let's just play this and move her around, and we can see, okay, the dynamic bones, they're decent, they're alright, but maybe I want to make a few tweaks. That's okay, let's make some tweaks. So, if you get my plugin, literally the only thing you need to do is double click on the setup, and it will install a Yeamorphs auto setup. Now, once that is set up, it'll come up with this Yeamorphs tab, and you just set up my avatar. Now, something to note is you will need dynamic bones. This plugin does not come with dynamic bones. You will need to have dynamic bones already inside of your project for this plugin to work. Otherwise, you will see a lot of errors. So make sure you install dynamic bones first, and then you set up my plugin. Okay, so right now there's only one setup type. However, there will be two. Right now it's only dynamic bones, and the next one is actually a full VRC setup. So basically right now this will set up all your dynamic bones. However, once I get to it, the full VRC setup will set things like basic animations, your like facial gestures. As long as you're using a MMD head, it should work, and you'll have all your basic facial animations set up for you. It'll set up your eye look. As now VRC3, you can set like your direction that your eyes look and whatnot. And it'll also set up where your viewpoint is. Now that may still need a bit of tweaking on your end, but it'll roughly put it where it thinks it should go, just for a quick setup, really. Anyway, enough talking about a feature that doesn't exist yet. I will show you a feature that does. So, the first thing you want to do is kind of just set up a workspace. Now, right now, this isn't really anything, and this is more so for the full VRC setup. However, you still do need to do this. So if we set up workspace, you'll actually see it generates, let's do this again so that you can see. So I'll delete these folders. So if we set up my avatar, we'll put in Yeamorphs. You can see it generates a folder. Now this folder will contain all animations and whatnot eventually, but right now it's just empty. Okay, so I want to remove all these bones. Well, with my avatar setup, you can do it really easily. You just click strip Yeamorphs of all bones. Now it says Yeamorphs because that's the workspace you've added. So if we click this, all the dynamic bones and colliders have been removed. If there are some left, just click it again and it'll just remove them 100%. Sometimes it does skip some. So we can just try this out now and move her around. You'll see there are absolutely no more dynamic bones on her. Now, the plugin does search for general naming practices for humanoid models. So bones for like the hair should be named hair for the root hair bone. For the bum should be bum, butt, ass, something like that. For the boobs, it's boobs, breasts, I think there's a few other ones, but yeah, as long as it's somewhere named like that, it should have no problem finding it. However, the plugin does give you a custom prefix that you can set up just in case they're not named that. So you can find a prefix that your model has and it will find it. However, in my case, everything is set up correctly, except for the hair. For whatever reason, this model has a really weird naming convention for the hair, and that is quite literally T underscore. So how do we set it up so it finds all of this? Well, it's pretty easy. Instead of having auto find hair, uncheck that, and it'll give you this text field. Now we just want to give it any prefix that is the hair. So in this case, it's T underscore, and it is case sensitive. And then we have things like front hair and sideburn. Now for these ones, we don't just want to say root underscore. Reason being is we actually have a few other bones on the armature that have root underscore in them. And those will also be counted as a hair bone if we add those. So we want to make sure we give it a name that is representing these bones only and no other bones. So in this case, we just need to say front hair and sideburn. And they should be, they should be fine. Now we've also got things like ears. If I can try and find the bones, I probably won't have success. Where is the ears? Are these not it? Okay, maybe it's broken. This is the first time I'm trying to rig up the ears. But if you had, if you have ears that are rigged and whatnot, you can also just technically put those bones inside as a hair component, and that will be fine. So the hair is set up. I'm happy with that. And you'll also notice most of the setups have a preset. Now this is really just to get you going. I don't really recommend using any of these, but if you want to see how everything looks, use one of them. However, you can also expose the dynamic bone values and set them up however you like, as you would normally. The only difference being is this will set your bones up in bulk using these settings. You won't need to go into dynamic bones and set up every individual component however you like. This will do it all for you. Now, because I'm trying to do this quick, I'm not going to mess around with any of that. I'm just going to set the boob preset to maybe jelly, the hair preset to high flow, the ass setup to jelly, and we also have an others tab. Now, inside of this others tab contains a tail setup. Now, if your model doesn't have a tail, that is fine. Just leave this blank. It won't do anything. Excuse me. You do need to make sure though that your tail bone does actually contain the word tail in it. That is the only setup in this entire plugin that requires the tail to be named tail. So I'm just going to quickly set up this tail. Maybe something like this and a radius like that. It nothing too fancy. And everything looks fine. So now that we've just quickly set up a few of our settings, let's set up avatar. Now we can disable our normal one that we just deleted all the bones with. And we have this one now, which has all our bones on it. You can see that the tail, the radius for it could be a bit bigger. So let's actually go ahead and delete this. Change the radius to maybe a 0.1. And then we set up the avatar again. And there you go. I mean, now they're probably a bit too big, but you can see how easy it is to change all the bones. Just delete it and make sure you have, so this base model here, you can set up your VRC avatar descriptor. You can set up any other scripts or materials. Just have the base model all set up with the materials before dragging it into the plugin. And then you can just keep deleting the clone and replacing it and just keep making iterations on it because you always have this base one here. Okay, so now that we've set that up, we can test it. Let's go ahead, go into play mode and give it a test. Okay, so let's, there you go. We've got our hair colliders working. We've got the boob jiggle, sorry, the hair bones working, sorry, not colliders. got the boob jiggle. It's kind of hard to tell on this model because of the tail, but we should also have the jiggle for the bum. And another thing this plugin does for you is it automatically sets up the hand colliders to basically everything that moves. So if we go ahead and find one of the one of the hand colliders here, which is inside of the wrist, and sorry for the nightmares that are about to happen, and we'll just go global. But now we have collision. You can actually see with the tail back there it was touching it, but we also have collision with the hair, we have collision with the boobs, and then with basically any other part of the hair we have collision with. So usually you would have to drag and drop all these colliders on to get them to work with dynamic bones, and you know, it's just a real hassle. It takes a lot of time, but you know, with just a few clicks this plugin does it for you really easily. And then of course if you want to edit something, change something up, maybe I don't like the way the hair is, maybe I want it to be more stiff, maybe I go with I don't know, medium flow. So I just delete the clone, add another one. I did this in play mode, so this is actually going to revert when I get out of it. But yeah, you can see the hair's looking a little bit better now. It's probably a little bit too jiggly. So like I said, you would want to use your own dynamic bone values. So I can quickly demonstrate that. Let's delete the clone. Maybe we'll have a damping at 0.4, elasticity 0.2, inert 0.6, radius 0.1, and end length at 1. And then if we set up avatar, the radius is way too large. Let's do 0. What do we want? 0.05. Try that out. That's all right. And then we can see, okay, that's acting a little bit more like, you know, hair. It's not too wavy, not too stiff. It's all right. It's not bad. So that's an example of an avatar you've purchased and you want to remove bones. Now, let's do this again. What about an avatar you've made? So this is actually a model I've put together. So this basically has all the correct naming conventions. So it's actually really easy to set this one up. And just so you guys know, I haven't changed any of the names. This is just, you know, people who have made these models and have actually just named them correctly. So if we set up my avatar, might make this one year 2. Drag my model, wrong one, drag my model inside of here. And we'll make the boobs jelly. Hair can be, we'll just make it medium flow again. The ass setup can be jelly. And others, don't really need to mess around with others. We have colliders and whatnot that we can change the radius and offset to. But I'm just going to leave everything as basic as possible. Set up avatar, disable the one without, and now we have collision. Or dynamic bones rather, with collision. Yeah, and you can see this with very little effort we've added all the dynamic bones needed onto this avatar. It's all working fine. That's pretty good. And again, we can go ahead and get the spine, chest, shoulder, wrist. Okay. And then we can just move this around. You can see that the collider interacts with the hair. It interacts with the breasts. And most importantly, it interacts with your bum. Alrighty. Excuse me, goodness. That's pretty much it, really. It will be a plugin that I do sell. I mean, I've put a lot of effort into making this work. So you know, I kind of would like to be compensated for it. But while it is in the early stages, I plan to only sell it for around 10 to 15. And then once I finish it with the full VRC setup, it'll probably jump up to 35. But yeah, you can use this for commercial, you can use this for personal. It's just really simple. Just, you know, as long as you get your as long as you set up your avatar, you know, you can add your VRC descriptor in this. You set up all your materials and whatnot, drag it in from the scene. It'll set up your bones. Honestly, with my previous avatars I've been making for people, and then when it comes to dynamic bones, I think honestly out of everything, it's the dynamic bones that takes the longest. And that's just because of all the tweaking you need to do with every single bone that you end up adding. So yeah, this definitely speeds up the process. I reckon it saves a good half an hour, maybe even an hour, depending on the complexity of what you're trying to get dynamic bones on. But yeah, definitely saves time. And if you guys do end up getting it, I will leave the Discord server in the description. So if anyone needs any help with it or any recommendations, just join that and have a chat with me. I will be making more videos on Blender as requested. I might be showing you some fancy tricks on how to weight paint. Might be another video I release today actually, because I have been away, so I do want to put a little bit more content out. But yeah. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys a bit later on.